Man, been a while since we did this.
Yeah.
I did the Pan Am last.
Yeah, where's that at?
I raffled it last year.
That's right.
Doug, actually, a dude I know won it. Doug Wathke, down in Georgia. He's a big time rider. He actually, they call him Round the World Doug.
Oh, that's cool.
He rides all over the world. He's actually over in, Czech Republic right now or something, doing something. But, yeah, I don't know. He was riding it for a while. I haven't seen anything about it lately. But.
That'd be a badass. I say that I would love to have that experience of riding around the world, or even what Dan did going to Argentina. But fuck, man, I don't know if it's just like a phase of my life where I really want to be home right now, or I'm burnt out on being out.
Yeah, because you travel so much.
Yeah, and so, this year alone, me and my wife did a Pacific Northwest road trip.
Yep.
Came home, did a Midwest trip for Mama Tried, then had a mad dash of busting ass to make enough money to then come on this trip where I, met you out there in California. So
right.
It's just it sucks because you don't want to complain because it's like a fortunate thing that you're getting to do.
Right.
But I don't know, when you're in it, it's easy to complain about it.
No, I get it, man. Trust me. I have the same thing. Everybody's like, oh, it must be nice to build motorcycles and work for yourself all day. And don't get me wrong, it is. And the good far outweighs the bad. But there's days it's like shit,
Yeah.
Because, there's no comfort. There's, it's 7 days a week. And, people only see what you post on social media, and they only see where you're traveling and going around the country. Mm-hmm. And they think that it's just all sunshine and rainbows, and that's not the case.
Well, it's a perception thing, right?
I can close that.
That's fine.
Were you recording?
Yeah, it's recording.
Oh, sorry, dude.
It's all good.
I just didn't want that bummer.
Well, the perception is, if you think about what you notice on social media or just in that space, you do only notice what people put out there. And so when there's nothing being put out, maybe once in a while, if you're connected with somebody, I wonder what so-and-so's up to.
Right.
But for the most part, you're not paying attention to all that stuff until you get those tidbits of information that comes through. And so you are really just seeing the highlights. You are seeing, because when people are under the gun, they don't have time to be on the phone going, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And unless someone needs help and they're reaching out for
asking
help.
for it, right. Yeah, I guess you're not, if you're trying to figure out a critical step or something, you're not really posting about it. That makes sense,
Yeah.
Because that's the last thing you want to do is post when you're got an issue going on. You don't want to bother people with all that crap.
Yeah. So we were just kind of talking and whatnot, and doing the People's Champ the year prior, right? And then, because it's been since 21 that you came and did the podcast, I believe.
Yeah. When was the, it was 21 because I bought the Pan Am brand new when they first came out in 21. I got the last one because they were you couldn't get them. Mm-hmm. I did that build for the Virginia City Roundup, and then that's when I met you. Came down to the podcast at your place there. Mm-hmm. And then right after that was Biltwell the following year.
Yeah.
I did the People's Champ, and then this past one I just did Born Free.
Yeah. What was your Born Free build this year? What was the whole premise behind it?
It was 100% what I'm into. Mm-hmm. I've it's kind of hard to explain, but I've been super passionate about board track racing since I was a young kid. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just because if it's a premise of that's where performance started, mm-hmm. and everything we have today is reverts back to the old time and mm-hmm. racing and factory race teams. Mm-hmm. But I've just always been fascinated by it. So, owning an antique motorcycle company, competition distributing, and then, being invited to build for Born Free, I was like, you know what, I'm going to step back and fully bite off something that I want to do for me and, mm-hmm. Not really what particularly is that show is for, which is choppers, mm-hmm. And that's what we did. We did, it's a 1926 cases. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that is factory on the bike. Everything else is crafted by us here.
Yeah.
But it's all done in retrospect to paying homage to that time period of the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
8-valve, which Harley had the first 8-valve in 1914. Overhead valve, which is crazy because people don't really think about that, but factories were going 100 miles an hour in the early teens, which is like the very beginning of motorcycles in general. So
yeah.
It didn't take them long. They called it the ton. Like they tried to hit the ton. That's 100 miles an hour. So Excelsior, I believe, was the first company. Excelsior and Indian were like right there. They did it first, and then Harley wasn't too far behind. But that was what the bike was, is just kind of paying tribute to that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like your wheelhouse and whatnot. But to that, what you said about Born Free kind of being more the chopper thing, it definitely is. But even like on this trip, I did a podcast with Mike, and he kind of spoke on how the show is kind of still at heart a chopper event, but it's evolving with, like, they want diversity in the builds.
Yep.
Like he even says, like, there's no cap. Like it's not like it has to be 84 or older.
Right.
It's just that usually the people, they build that because they think that show is about that. They won't step into these other areas,
Right. And that's kind of the thing. Like if you don't have a knuckle or a pan or even a flathead, people are like, oh, that's a Born Free bike. But that's what I love about those kind of shows. Like same with Built Well. There's no rules. They don't tell you like, hey, you guys got to build this. Mm-hmm. They just tell you, hey, you're in the show, you can build a bike. Like, they'll ask you like, what's your plans? Like, what are you planning on building? Mm-hmm. Because I'm assuming they're trying to weed out people that don't really have a plan or whatnot.
Yeah.
Over the years, I'm sure they've had encounters like that, but there was like no rules or anything. Like, and that's what I love about building for those kind of shows, because you just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I have fun doing that anyway. So.
Do you think there's like this vibe where you can take something that's like 1920s period correct, but then start like, is there a way you can modify and start making that more custom?
Oh yeah.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's actually, it's funny you say that, because like after this year's Born Free, I kind of stepped back and, I'm going to take a year to work on the company, and we have a ton of massive projects going on this next year with this machine coming and everything. But I'm going to take that time to kind of regroup and get things on track, because the builds take so much time. But I do want to come out of the gate in the future and kind of do just that. I want to build like a 1920s era, like a long bike or something, use like an old G80H platform.
Yeah. And
two cam race bike engine, but put it in like a long bike profile with a transmission and stuff. So possibilities are endless. It just depends on how you want to do it. But
yeah, I've always said that I can appreciate something, especially when you're building something that's 100 years old. But I'm always at heart a custom guy.
Right.
Like, oh, that's cool. You made it back the way it was. And it's more impressive when it's 100 years old. Like when it's 1974, I'm like, bro, like, come on.
Yeah, yeah, like anybody can do that, right?
Yeah. But no, to that point of like, I would say that like that Rome TV show, when it came out, I hadn't really got captivated very much about that pre-Knucklehead stuff, and I'm only just now getting kind of interested in Knucklehead stuff, to be honest with you. And I don't really know why, because it's nothing I'll ever be able to afford, unless...
Don't say that, because I always
just
used to
pops
say
up.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, like, don't ever say never, because trust me, like, not even that long ago, I was like, man, I'll never be able to have that kind of stuff. It's about timing. Big time is the first thing, but like once you start hanging out in the older world and you start meeting these people, you'll fall into like these crazy little backdoor deals where you'll like stumble upon a part, and all you need is that one part. And if you get that, like say you get like a case, like a left side case with the VIN number, it's like game on. Now you can start collecting, and by the time you know it, you'll have an entire bike, and that's almost more fun than just finding a complete bike.
Just a complete one? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just now also getting into the swap meet thing, and I've only gone to small ones, and I really don't even know what the hell I'm looking at right now. I'm pretty good at not tackling, like adding too much projects to myself. Like prior to us turning the camera on, we were talking about, I have a lot of things I want to do, so there are projects I have in mind, but I'm good about like not having too many build projects. Like I'm not trying to build 4 bikes at once and then that one's on the shelf for 3 years.
Right.
Like I'll lose interest in stuff like that. So, but I am getting to this point where I want to do something pretty soon. I got some ideas, and now that I kind of understand how to work in that world, I'll probably end up doing a chopper here pretty soon. I got an Evo motor that I bought another FXR, and so I'm
did?
pulling that whole thing out and putting a bigger modern engine in it, so I'll have a decent Evo to build from, and I'm gonna try to swap meet piece together like a little rigid chopper for
That'd be killer, yeah.
And then after that, I'll sell that, and whatever comes of that will be money that I'll start playing with in that world.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, start building a foundation for more stuff. You'll find it's addicting, just like everything, but once you start playing in the swap meet stuff and you start like recognizing parts you're looking for, it becomes like an absolute insane addiction. Because like, for example, last week was Wasion, which in the AMCA world, that's like the largest swap meet in the country. You got Dixon in the West Coast, and on the East Coast here, Wasion's one of the bigger ones. And it's at the Fulton County Fairgrounds in Wasion, Ohio, which is about 3 hours from here. But we were just there for 2 days, and it's like, dude, every day you're walking like 10 or 15 miles. I mean, just parts beyond imagination, and like not just super old stuff, but a lot of really old stuff, which is rare. Like I'm talking like 20s, 30s stuff, even teens, but then all the way up into like shovel heads and stuff like that too, you know? So it's a really good meet for looking for parts like that, because the deals are to be had. Like, you know, frames, hardtail frames are going for like $300, $400.
yeah,
You know, so that's like the kind of stuff that gets fun, because it's not eBay prices, it's not marketplace prices, and if you're looking to build something, it's where it's at, you know. And the people there are killer too; they're a lot of fun. So
yeah, I need it. I guess I never even heard of that one. I'd always heard of like Davenport and stuff like that, Long Beach swap meets, Pomona or something like that.
Yep. Dixon is a big one in California. So the AMCA meets, like the real big ones, is Dixon. You got Wasion, which just happened. Davenport isn't an AMCA meet anymore, but it's a massive meet, and all the AMCA guys are there. Like, we're going to have a booth there, and that's coming up at the end of August. That one's in Iowa. You got Denton in North Carolina. There's, the Fandango. They're starting to build a meet down there now at that. And then, let me think of another one. There's Upperco, Maryland. Ole is a real big one. First one in the year, really, other than the Sunshine meet, which is in Florida, and that one's in Pennsylvania. But there's a lot of them. You can go to the AMCA site, and they'll show you like the whole list and stuff. But
yeah, that's the next move with all that stuff. Plus, it's like I was hanging out with Cut Rate, and he was just talking about. Actually, no, I was talking with Jeff Milburn.
Yeah,
and he was talking about how like swap meets is also where I found a lot of this decor for my place, like all the old mid-century modern, all the old hot rod memorabilia, like you find these things at swap meets. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's everywhere, dude. That's the part you have to decide when you go there, is like, always take a bunch of cash with you, because like most of these guys don't deal with anything but cash. And then be ready to like set like, hey, I gotta buy this, and if you want like memorabilia or decor, like make sure you set enough money aside, because there's always a ton of good stuff like that there too, like displays and everything. But it's awesome. Like, I could literally spend, you could easily spend 3-4 days there and not get tired out. You know, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't really ever thought about doing that, but being like falling in love with this, like making things in a sense, even if they're small parts, like knowing you made something on this from scratch, is kind of like a new satisfying feeling that I've had that feeling in other areas of life, but not so much like on a motorcycle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's addicting, man. To be able to make something and then actually use it in one of your builds or whatever, and even be able to ride it, it's a cool feeling.
Knock on wood, but I'm like, I can't believe that exhaust hasn't broken yet. Fucking, it's like
holding on.
Yeah, like any day now. But yeah, that's pretty wild, man. Like I definitely, like the writing's on the wall. It's like there is a path to this world and all the knowledge, and it does require work. You can't just sit on your couch and Facebook Marketplace yourself into this industry or this side of the world, right? Showing up to things is something I've always talked to people about. Like, you show up to events, you show up to the Sturgis, the Born Frees, like people start seeing you, your brand starts to kind of grow better than just being on social media, right? But that's also the same advice I need to give myself when it comes to like trying to get into understanding more of these parts and going to these swap meets and meeting some of these older gentlemen that are willing to give that knowledge and shit like that away, you know what I'm saying? Not give it away, but Yeah,
like kind of, to be honest, man, you have to find those guys that'll kind of, metaphorically speaking, take you under their wing. Because, like, there's so much to be learned. I deal with it every day, and I still don't know, like, the surface of it,
Yeah.
And it's like, but I'll tell you right now, like, I know you're used to communities because you guys, you've built your own community in a sense with, like, your show, and then, you guys' camp out and everything else.
Yeah.
You guys have, like, your own knit group. And, it's like that, but it's like, it's such a different world because it's like guys that have been doing it forever. Like, it's not somebody that just bought a bike and rolled into it. Like, you're dealing with dudes that have literally, this has been their life for like the last 40 years.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a fad or anything. And I'm not saying that about like you guys.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, you're dealing with dudes that have been in it forever, and it's like, it's just a cool feeling. And there's no stereotypes or anything. It's like, if you love the same stuff they love and they see that, then you're in, and that's all it is. And once you're in it, it's like, it's just a cool world to be in. I love it. Like, antiques for me is like, riding the bikes is like a small part of it, building them, dealing with the people. I've met some of my best friends on this planet in the antique world, They're just some great, great people. They'll give you the shirt right off their back,
I wanted to ask you, like, your build process in the last couple of frames I've seen you done is literally laying an engine on the ground and chalking out. Like, where does that come from? Like, you're chalking out the design of the frame on, like, the concrete on the ground.
Yeah, that was like, my Biltwell bike. I wanted to steer as far away from that as I could. So that bike was heavily engineered. Like, we use CAD modeling for a lot of the bike.
Yeah.
I wanted to, like, pay complete homage to the way guys used to do stuff back in the old days. So when I set out to build this bike, I did it as much old school as I can. We obviously still use CAD for stuff, but it was a good blend of both worlds. And that's how I kind of got that concept. Was I was thinking to myself, because, one of the guys I actually look up to as a builder aspect is that Maxwell Hazen. He's on Instagram. I follow him, but he takes stuff and he actually, like, when he builds his bikes, he actually draws them on a piece of paper, like on a back wall of his on his lift table. And I saw that, and I don't have that same setup, and I was like, well, I can kind of do that same thing. I just use chalk on the ground, So that's what I did. Is I had my cases. I had the cylinders roughed in, and I had not the heads I was using, but I had heads that, like, I was going to use. So I just kind of, I pinned the motor up, so I set it together as best as I could, so I knew exactly what size it was. And I had a sketch drawing, because how I build stuff is everything I do, I draw it first on a piece of paper, and then once I get it, like, proportional wise the way I like it, then I'll lay it out in real life. But I took that sketch and I set it right on the ground next to the chalk drawing, and I just started sketching around the engine and tried to make it look as much like my drawing as I could. The challenge of that was the easy part. The challenge of that was getting that to transfer into real life, And that's where I came up with the idea with the chain and everything. It was just happened to pop into my head. I was thinking about going to Home Depot, buying some, like, 3/4 inch plywood. And what I was going to do is I was going to draw the floor drawing onto the plywood. Like, I was going to transfer it and then make jigs and then heat bend my tubing to the jigs on the plywood. Because I have manual benders. That's how I build frames and stuff. But I was, like, trying to do it really old school. And I just couldn't see it working real easy. It wasn't easy to transfer that from the floor to a piece of plywood. So I'm sitting there, like, looking, and just so happened on my bench there was a piece of 530 rear chain. And I'm like, holy cow, light bulb went off. And I'm like, dude, I can take this chain and I can literally just set it on the drawing to the shape that I drew, 100%. And I can weld those links, each one of the links, and so it keeps its shape. I take it off the ground, I put it on my weld bench, I weld the chain to the weld bench. Then I take my tubing, I weld the tubing to the bench, and I take my torch and I just start heat bending it right to the shape of the chain. And that's how I did it. Was just one layer after another. And it was time consuming. It wasn't by far the easiest thing to do, but it to me it was fun because it was, like, again, building with what I had technically, So that's kind of how it all came about. But that was a fun one, like, kind of seeing that whole frame come together, because I've never tried it like that before. That was the first time. So
That's pretty wild. Yeah, that's yeah, I was looking at it, it's like, okay, that's a way to do it.
Yeah. I know the response to that one video was nuts. Like I posted it. I actually almost didn't post that video of like the sketching because like all I did was my wife's always like, you know, hounding me like, you know, make sure you video what you're doing, you know. So I had like a little tripod out here. I set my phone up and I just put it in the time lapse mode.
Yeah.
I just did a quick thing, you know, and I posted it on Instagram and it went like, you know, it went crazy, you know, tons of views and likes and comments and stuff. And everybody's like, oh my God, the chain, that's a great idea. And it was funny because like it was just like literally, I don't know, it just popped in my head, you know, but it looking back, I'd do it again. Like,
yeah. But the reason I think it makes sense is because these type of frames that you're building around these motors aren't like your traditional style frames that we're looking at in, you know, shovelhead Evos,
right,
where you have your, you know, down tubes coming down and these rails at the bottom. It's like it's a frame, like a cradled frame around the motor almost, and it's much more complex. Well, I don't know if it's like, I'm sure there's more complex curves, but like it's just, you know, like,
right. And that was the thing. Like, so I have a bunch of bend dies in a tubing bender, you know, because I build normal frames here. And the thing to bend and get the shapes I wanted for that frame, and I wanted to look 100% like I drew. I didn't have the right dies, so I was like, okay, I can't. And I'm not. And you can custom make dies, but I wasn't going to go that far with it because you're going to essentially spend a bunch of money to make a bend die that you're only going to use, you know, maybe once or twice. So I was like, you know, that's when I kind of decided to go that route too. But those frames, you know, those shapes and stuff they used, you know, they if you look at them, they completely mimic the shape of the engine and what the chassis is supposed to do. So like they're all single down tube. Mine, that's how I changed it in a custom aspect, is I added 2 smaller down tubes. Instead of using like a 1 or 1 1/4 pipe, I used 7/8, and I bent 2 of them and I double stacked them. So I gave it like a double backbone look on there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I wanted it to look like it was cast, like what these pieces are. And I wasn't going to go through the process of making casting molds for a one-off bike. You know, it's just way too expensive and time consuming. So what I did is I drew the cast lugs, like all the joints of the frame. I drew those on the floor. And then what we did is we transferred that into SolidWorks, and I just laser cut out like multiple pieces. And then I stacked them all and I welded them all together. So like we put holes in them, and then I welded all plate by plate by plate, however thick they were, like 1/4 inch pieces. Welded them all together, and then I ground them all smooth and shaped them to make it look like it was a cast piece.
Okay.
So that's how like all those joints came to be. And it looks like an old, you know, teens frame. But again, it was just doing it with what I had and the equipment I had. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that was you know, like I said, unique ways of doing stuff. And like I was getting at earlier, me getting a lot more interest in all this stuff. Then I'm glad all this stuff is out there. Like what you've done, it's documented, it's on there, so I can always revert back and see how you did something.
Right.
You know, could you imagine this in the 80s? Like, you know, you had to hope that it was in some Easy
magazine,
Rider or
yeah.
a magazine or a Climber or something like that.
And that's the funny thing is like we take all this for granted now, but man, like especially when you talk to the old timers in our world, you know, it's like they literally had to wait every month for a new magazine to come out to see what their guys were doing, you know? And it's like every single day you turn on your phone, it's like, holy shit, somebody just pulled that off, you know? And I use a lot of that for inspiration, you know? Like there's some great dudes out there that are building crazy things. And every time I see that, it like pushes me to go further, you know?
Yeah.
So I love it, you know, being able to have access to that kind of stuff. But
yeah, I don't know, it's just insane, but the most insane thing that I'm, you know, seeing is this stuff. You know, like knowing. So I'm a video gamer, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
me too. I grew up in the game.
There's a game called Death Stranding. It's pretty badass. It's kind of a modern. It's like a post-apocalyptic kind of thing, and in this futuristic world, you pretty much 3D print everything. Like you can 3D print a vehicle and all kinds of shit. And I was like, man, how are they ever going to do something like that with metal? That just, whatever,
Right.
you know, like it's a video game. It's not real.
Right.
Plastic comes around. 3D printing with plastic is, you know, widely. It's available, you know, for
everybody.
Everybody can get that,
Yeah.
right?
You get a nice one for your desktop now for like $200.
Yeah. So now you have the ability to, do this with metal. Holding this piece right here, knowing that this was basically sand.
Powder, yeah.
Powder?
Yeah, the best way to describe the material in its soft form is sugar, or not even sugar, it's flour.
Flour.
It's like a
that
light
fine?
powder, yeah.
Wow.
So when you're around the material, you actually have to wear a respirator and like a hazmat suit because it'll get literally get in your pores and stuff. So you want to keep it off,
And when I first started seeing about this stuff was watching that On the Roam. I was watching On the Roam, the Jason Momoa, kind of, I don't know if it's not really a documentary. It's more of a...
It's like his love letter to the community, like of what he loves to do,
And they had that deal where they were scanning and making parts. I don't remember which episode it was, but they were trying to recreate a couple of race bikes that were...
The DAH.
The DA, that's right. So, and I saw them scanning it, but I didn't know if they were scanning it to then maybe like CNC everything, like out of billet aluminum.
So that's what they did on that one.
Okay.
So what they did is they did a couple different processes. They scanned, and they also did a thing called a ferro arm, which a ferro arm is like a really high-end measuring device that you could like take something like this and it comes down to a point and it takes point geometry off everything. So you could literally touch surfaces. It's on a flat, controlled surface, like 100% accurate and true to the tip of the gun. And they pull points off of it, and they can actually turn that into a model, like a 3D CAD model. And they did a couple different techniques there. And what they ended up doing, I talked to a couple of guys that were involved in that project, Brian Charles, Nick Toscano, and then they had a machinist as well. But they 3D wax printed all their waxes. And then they actually went to a foundry, like what you would do in the old days, pour them, and then their machinist machined everything. Like, so all the motor pieces, like the heads, the cases, the frame pieces, all that, that's how they did it. But they recreated 100% to the T a factory-only Harley Davidson DAH hill climber, which is like, they only made like 20 of. Fuck. So it's like rare shit, which for guys like us, like it's like nerding out, that's killer.
But yeah, I've seen the cast processes to make things like this. These like more or less connecting pieces. Like this is Springer front and stuff, right?
Yep.
Triple tree.
Yep. That's so that stuff here. It's actually the stuff I poured for my 8-valve, my Born Free bike, but I poured extras because doesn't make enough sense to do one. Yeah. This is all factory Harley Davidson stuff. I have the molds, and then I poured waxes, and then sent the waxes off to the foundry. The foundry then takes my waxes. They put them on a sprue, which they call, and it's like a tree. And they dip it in this solution that it hardens like a ceramic shell. Yeah. And they pour hot iron into this sprue, and it melts all the wax out, and then this is what's left over.
Oh, okay.
So they cut it off the tree, and when this comes off, it's a solid. So like none of these holes, nothing is in here. It's just a solid chunk of this shape. Like these aren't finished all the way. I got to grind all these off. These are the cuts from the sprue. But then you have to take this when you get it back from the foundry, and that's when the work just starts. You have to machine all this. You have to bore your holes. This is a plunger for your adjustment in and out for your springs, for your Springer front. It's a ton of work, but it's how they did it. That's how they used to build it. Yeah.
Probably pull that bike a little bit further.
Push it up in there.
Yeah, sure. Sid, I decided to wash my bike. Or just spray it down right before when I left because I hadn't washed it since Dallas.
Oh, jeez.
And it was just covered in bugs. I just hit it with a power washer and knock them all off and everything. But back to this stuff, man. Like, so I've seen a lot of the castings. Other friends I've seen do smaller things, but they'll do whatever. But when this technology now that being able to 3D print metal, and just from what you were telling me earlier, that it's stronger than a cast. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you have the ability to do multiple different types of metal.
Yeah,
Is that the way you would say that?
Yeah, it's different types of material, and it's all like they're starting to refer to it all as additive manufacturing. So unlike machining, where you're just taking a solid chunk of whatever you're making it out of and taking away, you're creating it from absolutely nothing. Like it's a powder. Like you literally have a barrel of powder in this machine, and the laser starts going back and forth, and it heats up the powder, whatever material you're printing, and it centers it together, and there's no voids. Like castings, not this particular one.
Yeah.
There's like holes in them and stuff.
Yeah, it's more like a sponge, like porous. I think
Yeah,
is the word.
yeah, exactly. It's porous. And these printed pieces like this here, this is printed in 30 micron layers, so it's like it's 99.8% dense. Is the best way to put it. So it's like there's no voids, and they're all heat treated in a sense of when they're printed, they're under heat, and then when they come off the machine, it's the equivalent of being forged. So it's stronger than normal material. Like if you're casting aluminum, it's not going to be as strong as a printed piece of aluminum, you know, because it's like forged aluminum. So it's really remarkable stuff, and we've been getting into it heavier and heavier here the last couple of years, and after like pursuing the road and going down of getting our own machine to do it here in house, what we're finding out is that aerospace, hypercar factories, they've all been doing this stuff for like the last 10 to 15 years.
Oh, serious?
So like Boeing, Airbus, they've been printing parts for like, you know, not just like for fixtures, but like use on the planes and the cars and stuff for, you know, 10 to 15 years.
Damn.
So SpaceX, they print parts for their engines and stuff on their rockets. So it's crazy, man. Like it's definitely, that's where we're heading in the manufacturing world is, you know, it's all going to additive manufacturing.
Damn, that's crazy. So that actually could be a scary thing for machinists.
Well, and the thing is like, so machinists, they're not really losing their job, so to speak, because there's still machine work to be done. A printed part, like with the technology that's available now, you can print extremely accurately, like less than thousandths of an inch. But the thing is like you still have to machine the final fit. So like when we made these heads for the 8-valve, it's one of the extra ones. We undersize all this stuff by like 3 or 4 thousandths. And then what I'll do is I'll come in and we'll set it up on a mill, and we'll come in and machine this out and just what we call skimming it, or, you know, brushing it off, where you just take out a few thousandths just for your press fits.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, there's still like ever so slight little tiny imperfections, and in the machining world and tolerance where you have to have perfect fit on like guides and seats and all that kind of thing, it's still not like to that accuracy. So
Yeah.
there's always going to be some kind of a need for a machinist, especially CNC, but it's getting to the point where it's eliminating a lot of that work for sure.
Well, I mean, you could build a fixture for that and put it in a CNC machine, and the CNC machine could come in and do that.
Wipe it out. Yeah. So like here we don't have a CNC. Everything we have here is manual, so it takes us a little bit longer. But still, in the world of machining, these were quick. You know, like we were able to print these heads, get an angle plate, set it up on my mill bed, and then, you know, just indicate your holes, and then come in and boom, the clearance of holes, ream them, and then machine them for your bushings and seats and stuff, which is crazy. Like, you didn't have to, if this was cast, all these would be gone. Like, none of these holes would be in here, and you'd have to locate and center all those, which is like, it's a ton of work, you know, so it eliminates all that, which is extremely nice.
You would think that that's got to be what like manufacturers are doing for engines and stuff, right? Kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
It makes more sense to do it this way than have all these things casted, and then, you know what I mean?
Yep, and that's definitely the way they're going. You know, like we were talking to the manufacturer of our machine, and they're like, oh yeah, these like Bugatti and Ferrari and them guys have been direct to print on their production car floors for years now. So it's like, you know, just an example of that engine that we built for the 8-valve, that whole engine scratch built, we made everything for it. So like even the rods inside of it, instead of running regular rods, I'm like, let's make them. So, you know, my buddy Kevin does all of our modeling and stuff. We took a stock set of JD rods from the 20s and we made our own version of them, and we printed them out of titanium. So they're like almost a pound and a half less than a stock rod. And that lowers all your reciprocating weight. So now, like what we call wicking, you know, like the motor wicks up real fast. We lighten the flywheels and all that too. So yeah, you're making everything. Like you don't have to buy anything anymore.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah.
And how, if you were to guess, I mean, obviously this is a much more complicated technology than 3D printing plastic, but you got to think 10, 20 years before this is kind of like reachable to an average consumer?
I would say, you know, the way we're progressing right now and how fast stuff's picking up, I would say probably within 10 years, you could probably see, I know they already have like some really small machines. Like you can get really tiny bedded metal printers that aren't crazy money compared to like what a big one is. But yeah, 10 years, like think about like the polycarbonates and stuff, like the plastic ones, like 10, 15 years ago, people didn't even know what that was.
Yeah.
Now kids have them on their desk at home and they're making figurines and freaking gears and toys and stuff with them. And that was a short period of time.
Yeah.
You know, so,
but also, I mean, you add the technology of the 3D modeling and those kind of things. When that becomes an easier thing, then all of a sudden now I'm like, you know what? I don't like the shape of my the case I have here. Maybe I can 3D model this and then put that in the computer and then make my own kind of style to it and then reprint something new.
And that's it. Like the possibilities are endless. And the more that people get familiarized with like modeling software and learning how to CAD draw and stuff like that, it's going to be crazy. Like especially the stuff you can make, because you have to throw when you're doing this kind of stuff. I will say, like, you know, my friend Kevin, he's a freaking genius when it comes to this. Like, I wouldn't be able to do all this stuff without him. But like, you have to like throw all normal aspects of manufacturing out the window and like how you would design a part, because like this opens up endless possibilities. So it's like you might be making something like, oh, I can't do it that way because the mold's going to interfere. I can't make it. Like, you got to just start from scratch and like think of it layer by layer, because that's what it is. Like, you know, when these heads print, the way they print like this. They you know, they're on the print bed in that form, like that shape. So, you know, just think of every 30 microns a layer, back and forth, super slow, just sintering that steel together, or aluminum in this case. But it's pretty crazy. You know, you can.
How hot does that stuff have to get to be able to?
Oh, it's whatever the melting type of aluminum is. It's like was it 1800 degrees or something like that.
And steel's a lot higher, isn't it?
Yeah, so it gets even hotter for that. So like our machine will do aluminum, stainless, hardened stainless, and titanium. Those are going to be the four main materials that we print. Like in our world of motorcycles, we don't really need to go too many other options there.
I mean, what other options are there as far as like exotic metals, if you will?
Oh, dude, you can do brass, gold, bronze,
shit.
Inconel, which is crazy strong material. Titanium, as of right now, titanium is the strongest printed material you can do. But you can do like margarine steel. Gold is crazy because like I can't even imagine what it would cost to print gold parts, which they do. And like it's big in the jewelry world. Like, so like designer jewelry, they're starting to print like gold bands and stuff like that. But like, it's funny, like when you're looking at outsourcing this stuff and you're going to print it, you can actually select gold as an option. And like the price goes from like $800 to like $70,000 to print the same part. So it's just.
It won't be too long before some Saudi's got a whole gold. Open the Mercedes, the case is gold.
Yeah, you could. I mean, that'd be nuts, you know. But
well, the gold. I mean, gold's so malleable though. That's not a hard metal.
It's a low melting point too. Yeah. But you could do it for like show and fun. You know, not functional, but it's crazy, dude.
Somebody comes to Born Free and they got a completely gold case.
that's when you know somebody's rolling big time.
Yeah,
I got a set of cases in there from one of my buddies. They're all bronze, and I was thinking to myself, man, you could polish them things up; they look like gold, you know. But it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing because you said that. So it did. Is it per head? You said it was about 18 hours. Or
no, so like
set of them?
So a set. So like our printer bed, the one we got is big enough that we could fit 4 of these in one print. So we could print 4 of these in a time around 18 hours.
And then is that something that you really got to stand by and watch, or is it something you can like hit press and go work somewhere else?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of this whole thing is like, so the way we're setting this machine up, because the machine's in our shop here, it's coming into our shop, and then my buddy Kevin, who does all the modeling for us, he is able to control it from his home. So like he doesn't even have to be here. So like once the machine is up and running and we have everything set, and we like, obviously the first time you print a job from scratch, you're going to want to make sure everything's going okay. But like once it becomes like a production run part and we know how it's going to act, he can click print. All I have to do physically, other than material change outs, is hit the start button. And that's just like a fail safe so somebody can't hack the system remotely and print parts for guns or whatever. But so once I hit the start button, this will go. And in like 18 hours, I can go inside and go to bed. and it'll just keep working. Like, so it's like an employee that never stops, you know. That's the beauty of it.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where that stuff goes and how that could open up the doors for your world. It makes the most sense because you're basically taking stuff that doesn't really exist anymore, very rare,
right?
And you're bringing the ability to make that back to life and kind of make it better.
Yeah,
that's the interesting thing about it, in my opinion. Like, you could essentially take something that was maybe not very reliable and add maybe fail-safe some things in it to make it a more reliable part. Maybe the way the valves were made in those things, you could do some newer technology stuff. Right. That would have a you know what I mean? And this is
all. That's exactly what we did. Like, so like that 8 valve, everything on it is period correct 20s. Like, if you look at it from, other than the supercharger, that wasn't on there, but like everything on that motor is 20s era. And if you look at it from the outside, it looks 20s. But the beauty of it is like the seats, the guides, the material itself, aluminum instead of cast iron. They run way cooler. They're better for performance. The valves are Inconel, like, so they're stronger. They won't bend. They won't break. The seats are made out of nickel bronze, so it's like all modern day stuff in an old package. And from the outside looking in, you'll never know it, but it'll actually function. It'll run. It won't break on you, and when it does break, it's not going to be like devastating. So that's the fun thing about all this is like, no more casting voids, no more imperfections. You're eliminating all that stuff, and you're actually making a superior part. Damn. That looks exactly the way it is. That's the beauty, because like, we have the whole package. So having the scanner is what really makes us susceptible to being 100% correct. Because like this was done. This is a factory-only race piece here. This is a very rare offset neck. You can see how high the neck is compared to the frame rails. But Harley only made these for factory hill climbers. So this wasn't available to John Q. Public. So somebody got a hold of it, which was one of the old timers. They made molds off it. I got the molds, and I did it by hand. I poured them by wax, and we casted them like a foundry. And you can see all the imperfections, and that's how the real frames were. And what the beauty of this is now I can take this, I can scan it with our 3D scanner. It picks up every single imperfection. Like, if you have writing in there, recessed or protruding, it'll pick it up. Yeah. Like, so Harley had like experimental numbers on their casting. So if it was factory race, it would be like an EX number, like EX 123 or whatever. It'll pick all that up. It'll pick up every blemish. So when I go to print it, it prints the blemishes. Yeah. You know, I don't have to make it smooth like this. This one we just made like that. But like, I can print it, and you can set these two next to each other, and you won't know one's printed versus one being cast. So as terms of realness goes, for the diehards that want 100% real looking stuff, that's how you would do it. Yeah.
So why do they offset the neck? That's heavy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The neck like this for
so this was a hill climber. So what they wanted to do, for one, is they wanted a real low center of gravity. So what they did is they dropped the whole chassis down. The neck was tighter, like, so it's up higher, drops the center of gravity, and then they also de-raked it. So the steering is extremely quick. Like, riding this bike on the road is it's doable. We do it, but like it's kind of crazy because you're going on a road and you have like a real short wheelbase, and it's really quick to turn. You know, yeah, it acts really fast. So, but that's why they did it, because they wanted to try to keep them low, and they wanted you didn't really turn on a hill climber. You just kind of kept the front end down as much as you could. But that's
so the sense of low center of gravity helps with that. Yeah,
yeah, and the D-rake is quicker turning, better handling for off road. It's they're meant for the dirt. It's like essentially like a pre-war dirt bike.
Oh shit. No, that's interesting, man. What about like so what other kind of things have you thought about getting into with using this technology? I mean, is it right now you just have so much going on with like these pre-knucklehead world motors and stuff that and that's a lot of your business too,
right? Yeah, everything for us is like like 36 and older. So what we're doing here and what we're stepping into is we realize that like we have a very niche market. So like we don't expect to just make 100% nothing but old stuff. Like, granted, I have a ton of stuff right now that I need to make, like castings and stuff for all these frames and chassis projects we're doing. But what my goal is I want to be the guy, the company that people can come to, like, and I want to kind of stay in the motorcycle world. I mean, obviously we'll do whatever needs to be done, but I want to be the guy that you can call up and be like, hey man, I know you have a scanner. I know you have the ability to do this. Like we have an in-house engineer. Like if you want a part made and nobody has it, or if you're just dreaming up something and like, hey, I need this to fit this. Like you can come to us and we'll make it for you. Especially if like you're motorcycle guys, like we'll make you whatever. Like if you need a part for your Evo that you're building and you want to make some crazy intake manifold and something that's not possible to do by hand, like we'll make it for you.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to just limit ourselves to, it's too new for us. Like, screw you. Like, that's not what I'm getting into, you know, and quite honestly, that's not what pays the bills anyway, you know. This is an extremely expensive machine. It's not cheap to run. It's not cheap to do anything with. It's all very expensive, but I think it's going to bring some serious abilities to our world and kind of open people's eyes and what you can actually make now, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you really think about it, like just the way the motorcycle culture is, like it doesn't, unless you're in it on this side of it, like the custom side of it, it's really not like, it's not the 2004 era anymore where everybody had to have a custom motorcycle. It's a lot more of, well, I want a black Road Glide and I want to be able to throw some parts on it.
Right.
As opposed to someone, you know, wanting to make this or they want it to do, you know what I mean? Like the custom thing isn't really as prevalent as it was 20 years ago, right?
Right, yeah.
Maybe this kind of technology, along with 3D printing on, you know, plastics and stuff, will bring more, like something that we haven't really seen quite yet.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, it does, because it's like we're in the infancy stages, like in our world of it. You know, like I said, the other industries have already been doing this, but you don't really get to see that side of it, you know, because that's all really hush-hush stuff. Ferrari doesn't have cameras in their floor watching you make their parts. That's all proprietary beyond belief. Same with Boeing and Airbus, you know? So it's like our world, it's like an open book. Like when you make something new, everybody puts it out there. You know, it's like, oh, you got to see this, the latest and greatest, you know? So it's like the sky's the limit with this stuff. And once people kind of get their head around how it works and like how that there's no limits, so to speak, on how to make something now, that's what's really going to, I think, open up your door to, you know, because like we already have a ton of projects lined up. Like I don't even have the machine set up yet, and we have a backlog of probably 3 or 4 months of work.
Damn.
And that's just like with us not even really putting out there that we have the machine yet.
Yeah.
So like once we open those doors, and you can go onto our website and like, you know, contact us or whatever and say, hey, I need this. Like, you know, we can make it. And again, like we talked about earlier. It might even be a part that has been made before and they just don't make it anymore, you know, like we can recreate them. So
has plastic 3D printing got to the point where it's more like quality? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. They've like streamlined it quite a bit, like compared to the surface roughness and your infill layers and everything that they've had from the old days to now is crazy. Like you can get like nylon parts, and I mean, there's like hundreds of materials that you can print now. Yeah. It's crazy. Like we actually do, we printed like clear fuel bowls and stuff for like Linkerts and carburetors and stuff like that. Like the material options are getting out of control. Colors, translucents, different types, functioning parts. Like even in the plastics, you can make functioning parts that won't wear. You know, obviously not for motorcycle stuff, but whatever, you know, it might be a part at home or something. But yeah, the possibilities are crazy, man. It's definitely the way of the future.
Yeah, that's fucking insane, man. I'm excited about it because it does. I mean, as soon as you told me that, I was like, man, like, what do I need?
Yeah, I know that.
What can I think of? You know what I mean?
That's exactly right. You know, it's like, because like think about like triple trees are, you know, like your forks on your bike. You know, think about that. And I know dudes like can machine like crazy stuff, but like you can do stuff that you can't even do like on a 6-axis. You know, you can do crazy shapes and hollow chambers that you can't get to. You know, you can print something within something. You can encapsulate hardware into a print. Like you can pause it, put hardware in, and print around it. Like. Yeah, like it's nuts. Like once we actually have our own here sitting here and it's up and running, we'll be playing with it quite a bit.
Damn.
You know?
Yeah, that's gonna be insane.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you drawing a blank. Oh, I want to talk to you about the area, like this part of the country, right? Because we were kind of talking about when I came in. my perception of like the Mormon world was like the M. Night Shyamalan fucking movie.
Oh yeah. Where
they're like on they don't get off the community unless they're trying to sell something or whatever.
Yep.
And so when I was riding in here and I'm seeing like some guys walking up to their mailbox, I'm like, definitely, is that like just the style of dress out here? You know, and then I saw a lady with like the little cap on and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but there's tractors in there. Like there's like, I was like, I thought they were all, you know, this. And then when we pulled up, I didn't know about how'd you say that?
There's different communities. So they have like, each one of them has like their own religions. Like not each one, but each group of them have their own religions and their own beliefs. So like there's some, we refer to all of them as Amish. Mm-hmm. But there's some of them that we call Mennonites. Uh-huh. So like Mennonites are more lackadaisical. Like they have like less strict rules than like pure Amish people do. And by that, I mean like Mennonites can drive tractors. They can't, no matter what, none of them have electricity. None of them have running water in their house. It's all like outhouses. Yeah. It's all like bring the tub in, pour, water pump. But like some, like I said, some of them can do that. And then like some of them can have a phone in their barn, not in the house, but like if they own the business. Because like around here, we have a ton of Amish businesses. Like we have like lumber mills. Like you can go get rough cut lumber. Like this whole bar.
Yeah, I saw one on the way down.
Yeah, like all this wood on the walls, everything here, this whole bar, other than the bowling alley lane top, this was all made from rough cut Amish hemlock. So like we go down, I just order, whatever you need from the lumber mill, they'll make it for you on big old giant band mills with the big blades. Like I got a blade outside here. And no OSHA, no certification. You got kids that are like literally like 6 years old out there running a band mill in barefoot, t-shirt on. It's crazy. But like that's just the way they grow up, and it's crazy because it's like going back in time. Like I have Amish neighbors and stuff. Like you go down the road and it's almost like driving back to 1800s. There's a dude out in the field with his draft horses and he's tilling the land and he's got his kids out there, throwing bales of hay, and they're tiny,
Damn.
And they still believe in pumping a bunch of kids out.
Yeah.
Like you'll see these get like their families are like 12 to 15 people.
Yeah.
And it's like a bunch of these kids, and the more kids you have, the more workers you have. So like, it's crazy, man.
What's the well, I guess I should probably just Google this shit because it sounds like, being in, like, anytime I go anywhere in the country, like, I go to the Golden Gate Bridge, I immediately want to go and research everything about it. And that's kind of how I feel being out here. Yeah. Like, seeing it, like, it exists. I've seen the carriages on the side of the road before traveling, but getting off the main highway and going through these neighborhoods, it's like, how do they, like, designate, like, what tribe or however you would say that they're a part of, considering that it seems like they just have property just like everybody else in the world. You know what I'm saying? And
that's kind of the thing. So it's like they travel. So like the community is like, depending, it's what you're born into, really. They have, when you're born into a family, they just kind of keep that family's traditions going. So like if your community is like, say, 20 families, those 20 families might not all necessarily live right on top of each other right here. Like there's an Amish guy down here, then there's an Amish guy up over there. There's a dude like 4 blocks out, or like squares, I should say. We don't have blocks around here, but, and what they'll do is like the way, like, so Amish don't pay taxes. They don't have those same rules that we have. You know, they have their horse and buggy. They don't have cars or anything. So what they do is every other Sunday they have church. And they're very religious. All of them are very religious. But what they do is each one of their homes is a church. So that's how they get away with not paying taxes. So like they can go, their businesses don't pay taxes because it's all under the church, So like in every one of their homes is a church because every other Sunday they alternate where they go. So some Sundays is church over here, some Sundays is church over there. And it's funny because like, when church is coming, because you'll be standing outside or working or whatever, and here comes like 40 buggies down the road, And sometimes like after church, they all get together and play. Like they'll have like like badminton or volleyball or whatever, and the kids are out playing in the yard with a football or something, and they're all running around together and hanging out. And it's kind of cool because like they'll be leaving their their church and their buggies and stuff, and sometimes they have like a rope tied to the wagon. They'll be rollerblading behind the wagon. Some of them have like little push scooters. They wheel down the road. Like some of the boys, like the teenage boys and stuff, that's how they get around. They'll like literally get on a push scooter and push scoot for like 20 miles to get somewhere.
So it's just electronics, right?
Yeah.
It's like modern technology.
No connection to the modern world. Like just like I said, just a business phone. So like the other thing too, you can't take pictures of them because they believe if you take their picture, like their soul
Good to
doesn't.
know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because like if you ever try to like pull over and take a picture, they'll like either run from you or they'll hide, or like if you have a buggy coming out, because there's been many times like we'll have the 1912 Harley, it's an old belt-driven Harley from way back. We'll have it out on the road and here comes a buggy. It's like epic for like doing a video. Like here's this 1912 Harley racing a horse and buggy, which we've done. We've taken videos before. But like if they see you doing it, they'll stop the buggy and they just won't move, It's like they don't want to be videoed or anything,
That makes sense, because that, obviously being on this trip and trying to photograph everything, it's like, I'd try to be more discreet about it, because that camera's fucking huge, what I mean? It's like a goddamn, it's like a football.
Yeah, it's huge. Like, but you could like, what's cool though is like, which would be cool in a kind of perspective wise, like when you're in this area, is like you could like pull over on a section of road and kind of like not make yourself known, and you could like snap a picture of them working out in the field or something. And it would be kind of neat because it really is like we take it for granted, just like anybody that comes from an area that has certain things that other areas don't. Yeah. Like I grew up with Amish people. I've had very good friends that are Amish. We go to their businesses, we buy their food. They have bakeries everywhere. Like on Saturdays, Fridays and Saturdays, they make homemade Amish donuts right down the road. Yeah. They're like this big around. And they cook it all with like natural food, like stuff that they make themselves. So it's just, you get used to it. But you kind of take advantage of it. And it's really cool because it's like they're living their life, they're living their style. And it's like they're stuck in time,
Yeah, I kind of thought there was some kind of like, I don't know if the word's provision, but like a laxation of like the government on them because they choose not to be a part of society that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they don't really, they're probably not getting a lot of they're not even using a lot of the benefits that I guess our government provides because of the way that they carry themselves. And so why pay taxes for something that it's against your religion to use?
The only issue that comes into play is like, you can't compete with the Amish when the Amish what they're superior at is construction. They build better, not even necessarily better, but they're great with lumber and they're phenomenal craftsmen. So like, if an Amish crew comes a bit a job, and you have a contractor that does it normally, like a normal guy, a normal American citizen, he can't compete with an Amish crew. Because that Amish crew isn't paying all the stuff that he is. Like he's not, they're not paying workers' comp. They're not paying, taxes on that. And a lot of times what you see now, especially around here, is what these guys do is they'll hire Amish crews, these contractors. They'll hire Amish crews, have a crew of 20 guys come in, they'll waylay a job out and move on to the next, Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah. And like everything I've done here, I did it myself except that new addition. I had my buddy come down, my Amish buddy, and they had the building up in 4 days, a shell.
Did you have to write him a letter?
No letters. Luckily, I knew where he lived. I just went down and knocked on his door. But he's one of the guys that has a phone. Okay. So like I could call him, I could leave him a message, and he'd call me back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they can't answer when they call.
No. Yeah, it's a weird like one way. Dude, the rules are crazy. Like I used to run him around everywhere. He'd call me if he needed a ride or something, like in the town. We call them Amish taxis. Yeah. So like there's people literally that's all they do for a living is they have a van and they go around and pick up like 15 Amish people and they just drive them around to all their errands. Because like they can ride in cars, they just can't drive them or own them. Like my wife, some of our neighbors down here, there's a bunch of these little girls, these Amish girls. They'll just come right up into our house. Like they'll just walk into our house, be like, "Hey, can you give us a ride?" And like my wife will take them to the grocery store or whatever.
That's crazy.
But like I picked him up one time and I was moving a trailer for him or something with my truck, and I had my cell phone and I was like looking at a picture. And he's like, "Oh, let me see that." And I was like showing it to him. I'm like, "When are you gonna get a cell phone?" Like just joking with him. And he's like, "Oh, we tried." He's like, we were trying to get him for just the guys, like we all had businesses, like we were trying to get them so that people could get a hold of us, and he's like, it got shot down, like no, we couldn't do it.
What was that thing that like they had brought internet to like some tribe in Africa, and then all of a sudden they had a porn addiction?
Oh really?
It's like, I wonder if that would happen to like
I'm sure I'm sure dude.
cell phones.
They're already bad as it is. Like I said, they have like 15-20 kids, like they're obviously getting to work, so like it's crazy, dude. Like,
well, it might kind of slow down.
Well, actually, yeah, you're right. The workers will be few and in between.
It's like, hey, Bill, what were you doing out in the woods there?
Yeah, dude, that's another funny part. I could go on all day about this, but the freaking, when we were younger, like, you know, around here we partied like in fields and had big parties outside and camping and stuff. Well, we used to party with Amish kids all the time. Like, they sneak out, like young Amish dudes, like they'll sneak out and they'll like put on regular clothes. They call them Englishman clothes. They'll put our clothes on and come party with us and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because they're kind of like socially awkward, some of them. A lot of them are like really funny. There's some real goofy ones and stuff, but because obviously like they have some issues with like, you know, inner family deals, you know. So like what they'll do is they'll like send some of them out of state and they'll bring like somebody else in, like that way they're not all in the same family, you know.
Yeah.
So, but they're good people, you know. They're hard workers and definitely good to know some.
Yeah, the best thing was that movie, Sex Drive.
Rumspringer, yeah, that's real.
Yeah. But just like I think Seth Green.
Yeah,
was
he was the Amish dude. Computer.
Funniest fucking thing. He's like when he was like rebuilding that car.
The GTO judge. Yeah, he's
goes,
like, no, I don't know anything about your blown four barrel GTO judge. I don't know anything. I'm an Amish dude. You know, he's like making fun of him.
Well, when they fixed it all up for him, and he's like, "No, you don't owe me anything, man. It's good. We're even."
Yeah.
He just did all this work. You know, just like it was so passive aggressive.
Yeah.
That I was just like, God damn, that's fucking. I miss him as an actor, like being on shit like that.
That's actually still like one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
I love that movie. But
I think those kind of comedies don't really come around much anymore. But fuck, man, that was a good one. Yeah, man. So you said you're going to be taking like some time off from building like show bikes for shows, and you're going to try to focus on, especially with this new technology you got coming into the shop. Where like what do you think that evolves into? I mean, do you end up getting another one? I mean, how does that work? Does it get so big that, you know?
So that's kind of what we're seeing. So what our goal, I think, is ultimately is to have like kind of a mini print farm, like so that we can have, you know, I would say like 3 or 4 printers total, set up that we can have dedicated materials for each machine so that I'm not having to switch to aluminum to stainless and have contamination issues or anything like that. So that's kind of the overall outlook. You know, our next big investment's going to be some CNC machinery, because right now I do everything manually, and it's fun, but it takes a lot more time.
Yeah, if you make these and then you have a CNC and then you have you have it jigged out where it can come and just run all this, it's once again lights off, you know.
Yep. And then that way I can actually you can call me and be like, hey man, I need a couple sets of those heads. I'm going to build them out or whatever, and I can make them for you. And it won't take me as long, you know. Yeah. So that's kind of like what we're going to focus on. And, I'm just... we talked about it off camera, but like for the last 4 years, I've done a major build every year. I haven't taken a year off in 4 years as far as like big builds go. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to step back from the show circuit for a little while and focus on this machine, focus on, building up our inventory of parts and what we're making for old bikes and as far as what people want. And then with that being said, I still got a bunch of bikes I have to build. They're just not going to be like... super shiny, fancy, that kind of thing. There'll be actual riding and beat on bikes, so.
Well, talk a little bit about the, is it what was the?
Trans-American.
Yes.
Yeah, so we started, we announced it earlier this year, we started our own coast-to-coast race. We're doing, we call it the Motorcycle Trans Am. We're holding it, it's the first inaugural event is going to be next year in September. We're starting on the East Coast, and we're riding all the way across country. We're going to end in Oregon, up on the beach up there on the other coast, and it's going to be about 15 to 17 days, and it's 100-year-only motorcycles. So next year being 25, it'll be anything 1925 and older is allowed in the race. We're capping it at 75 riders total. We have I think it's like 57 signed up so far.
How realistic is it to pull those kind of things off? Like as far as a rider on an older bike?
I would
think
say
we talked about it in the first podcast a little bit.
Yeah.
But just to refresh the memory kind of thing.
So it's very doable. People have done it I think the very first ever event like this was in 2010, like official event. All those were based off of the old days of paying homage again to the guys that came before us in the teens and 20s and the women that did it and stuff like that. But it's very doable, but it's not easy. You have to be very dedicated to it. If you're going to build a bike for it, you have to not only build a bike for it with the intention of riding it every day for anywhere from 200 to 300 miles a day, but also being ready to fully tear that machine down and rebuild it that night so that you're ready for the next day. Because like there's nights where you're literally tearing an entire motor down to the crank and then building it back up to get it ready for the next morning. You know, we did it in 21, and I think the first night I rebuilt 3 motors. I think that's how crazy it is, you know. But the earlier the bike you do it on, the harder it is. You know, like we were on 1913s, 1912s, the really early stuff, and it makes it that much harder because you're doing it underpowered. You know, obviously we're bigger than those people were, and they were only really meant to go, you know, a few miles a day, not hundreds. So, but modern technology, you can modify the machine. So as long as you have stock cases, and the bike itself is like stockish, you can update the brakes. You can use a modern carburetor, which by modern I mean like a linker, like from the 40s and 50s. And you can like put bigger fuel tanks on it. You can do all that kind of stuff. You can set it up for the long haul. You can put brand new crank assemblies in. You can make them stronger, that kind of thing. But you just have to use stock cases, and the bike has to appear in a stock form. But like I said, you can do improvements. But yeah, it's doable.
When did they start bringing transmissions into play in these motorcycles?
1915 was the first year for Harley. Indian had some earlier. Excelsior had some. So like anybody that does a really, really early Harley, like, you know, teens, like, you know, 12, 13, 14, 15, before 15, 14s, they would be a 1-speed, which are with a rear wheel clutch. So 12 was the first year for the rear wheel clutch, where you could actually fire the bike statically and have it sit and idle, and then you have a clutch lever where you just slowly engage and you take off. And it's 1 speed only. So like when you're going, you know, on a 12-bit single belt drive, you can hit like 50 miles per hour in the stock form. But like I said, you only have 1 speed, so you gotta also think you're climbing hills and doing all that other stuff. So sometimes they have pedals, you have to pedal assist and help you get up the hill and that kind of stuff. But that's what makes it fun. And that's what makes it challenging, because like when you get to the end of the finish line of this race, if you do every day with just you and your bike, and you make every mile, that's an accomplishment like no other. You know, there's not a lot of people that have done that. So you kind of go into an elite group of people. They can say you rode a 100-year-old bike.
Kind of like Mount Everest type stuff,
right?
You know,
yeah, especially for the motorcycle world, because like it's funny, like you're a perfect guy for this because like you're very familiar with cross country road trips on a bike. Like when you talk to people about what you do, like how many miles you just did to like come out here, people like there's certain guys that look at you like you're crazy. They're like, holy shit, man, you rode that far, and like you're doing stuff that people dream of their entire life and never do it. Take it a step further and do it on a 100-year-old bike. It's like it really throws it into perspective. And until I did it for the first time in 21, it was like,
and to that what you just said, people don't. I've had a hard time trying to articulate why I wanted to do it on the least, at least for me, the least practical bike. It's like those challenges that come with trying to pack it, trying to. I mean, to be honest with you, it hasn't been hard at all. I mean, I've got enough packed on it, but I kind of hate the way it looks all packed out. I wish it was slimmer.
Yeah.
But it's just something different. It's a challenge. It just brings something different into the feeling of doing something that I like to do. But I mean, I could do the same roads over and over again. You know, modern bike, not a lot of a lot more comfort, right? A lot more wind protection, and it's fun. I'm gonna get there a lot sooner. It's just something about doing it on this And even in my head, thinking about wanting to do it on, I wanted to be able to do it on a rigid before my body won't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. You're trying to challenge yourself, and that's the kind of people, and that's kind of like, that's what you have to, like, those are the people you're looking for. So like, you know, as you progress and you do more and more of this stuff, like you're like the perfect candidate to like the guys that we're looking for. Cause like right now we have all these people sign up for this run, you know, and a lot of these guys are veterans. They've done it, or have tried doing it. They haven't maybe made every mile. They're trying to get that perfect score. But I'm trying to appeal to guys our age, because it's like, you have to want it for one, but it's also like every single day and every single mile. I can't even explain to you until you do it. Like the older the bike you do it on, every mile you make is like an accomplishment. Because like you might not even make all your miles for that day. Say you have a 200-mile day and you make 70. You're like, holy cow, I made 70 miles on a bike that people only see in a museum. They don't ever see that anywhere. It looks like a freaking old crap bicycle. It's blowing oil everywhere. It's crazy, catching on fire. The stories I can tell you are crazy, but. Like the days that you make all your miles, like I've had a couple of days where I've made all 300 and some miles on a 1913 single cylinder Harley. It's like, dude, it's like winning a Super Bowl. It's nuts. It's like you get in and you're dead. You're dying, you're sweating, and like I'm not a light guy, I'm not in shape by any means. Like I'm pedaling up hills and killing myself. Cars are honking at you, you're cutting people off, you're running stop signs. It is so freaking fun, dude, because it's like people are looking at you like you're nuts. And it's like we went across one of the days we were riding, we went across the Mackinac Bridge. And have you ever been across that? Yeah. So you know the grates, how you look down through. So like we were all chugging. I'm on this 13 single, and you're pulling that giant long grade, and you're looking down through the grates, and the grates are pretty big. You can see, and that bridge is high as shit. Yeah. And I'm on this little like this little single cylinder pubbing along, and all these people with cameras are taking pictures of me and stuff, and it's like, holy cow, like people are like really into this, And when you roll into a town at night, there's like hundreds of people that are waiting to see you and like shake your hand, and it's just cool, man. It's like that's what it's all about, that sense of accomplishment and that challenge to yourself. And then the way I look at it is someday I'm going to be able to look back and be like, man, I did that, because they're going to be talking about that stuff, just like we talk about dudes from 50.
You think like, you fast forward, I was just thinking to myself, like, I could probably wait till like 19 or 2037 or 2038. I'll jump on board then. Yeah.
Well, dude, like some of the guys that have like done these are like in their 70s.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm talking like old bikes, like Dave Courier won one of the events there a few years ago, and Dave's like, he's in his late 60s, retired dude. We all good?
Yeah.
He made like all his miles,
Damn.
And he won it. So it's like, it's crazy. Like age is just a number. It's all about what you want to do, and
it's like doing it on a rigid. Let's just say a fucking typical rigid chopper. Like you're not gonna. I don't think I would be able to move as fast as I would if it was a Softail, a bagger, things like that. Obviously,
right.
Your body can take so much. Your body's the thing that's gonna kind of like need the rest. Like on this trip, mind you, I have full suspension. You see my seat; it's not much,
right?
But honestly, I'm fine. Till about 350 miles, 400 is kind of like an okay day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I've already done an 800-mile day, and I might end this trip on an iron butt. I'm thinking about doing that.
Really? That's a lot on that seat.
Yeah, and so to me, like, the good thing, the reason why I did it on the north side of the country instead of saying south is you get a lot of different changes in the environment, and you see a lot of the country that kind of literally changes almost every state as you move. Dude, as soon as I crossed from Ohio here, the trees were thick, way thicker than they were over there. It's just those simple things, and it could just be the spot that I was coming through, but
Ohio's like all cornfields up here.
Yeah.
And then when you get into PA, it starts becoming heavy woods, and
so
more east you go, it's mountains.
You it's like, I don't know, like I wanted to basically a lot of hotels up here too. They have indoor spas and pools.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if you've had a hard day and you get there before the pool closes, you go in and just kind of jump back and forth from the pool and the spa, and it just kind of really relaxes all your muscles, and it doesn't feel bad. And you wake up the next day, you're like, fuck, like
feeling good.
I could do this all day.
Yeah, right.
second gas up, like, all right, I could do it for a couple more hours.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, right. You're like, oh shit, maybe a couple more gas stops. That's how every time you ride across country, that's how you judge your day is gas stops. How many gas stops did I do today?
Yep.
You know? But no, that's what it's all about. You know, I'm trying. You know, we're taking on this event. It's 4,000 miles. It's like 3,900. We're gonna go start running the course here next week.
Yeah.
Our buddy Danger Dan's in it with us. He's going to be riding a 1921 Harley. And again, he's the chopper guy, you know. Dan's hardtail ripping around the entire planet on crazy bikes, the Pan Am and his hardtail and stuff. So this is a whole new world for him. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to show like guys our age and younger generations that like you can do this kind of stuff. You know, you don't have to be
It's okay to challenge yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not like, don't get me wrong. There's a place for, you know, getting on a nice, comfortable bike and blowing across country. It's cool. You get to pound miles. But, like, it's cool to, like, try to do stuff that not everybody can do or will do, you know? And it's really rewarding. I don't know how else
I think
to
it'll
put it.
show you a lot more about yourself and what you're capable of doing, applying that amount of struggle into other areas of your life.
Right.
To overcome, you know, whatever that may be. Maybe it's just, like, anxieties or fucking, you know, self-doubt and shit like that. And
Exactly.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because I'll tell you, dude, the first time I did it, I went in with like I was a ball of nerves, you know, because like my biggest thing was like not knowing how the event was going to be, not knowing how I'm going to navigate across, because you don't have a GPS, you have a roll map, like you'll have turn-by-turn directions, and you got to roll your map by hand and look at the paper and read it. Even in torrential downpours, you're rolling this thing, you know, and you're on a challenging bike as it is. But again, every mile you make is an accomplishment, and I think if you can make it to the finish line, even if you don't have a perfect score, it's still a massive accomplishment. Even getting there is an accomplishment, because getting those bikes to run good enough to even try doing that is a big deal. So it'll be pretty cool. We're going all in on it. My wife Kelsey, she's running the event. She's actually the race the director. We have a bunch of really cool stops lined out. We're stopping at some really during the day. It's just you and the bike. Like there's no stipulations. You just have to stay on course. The other thing about doing it this way is nice is you have the beauty of having a chase truck. So we'll have 2 sweep trucks at the very back of the pack every day. So if you do break down and you can't fix your bike in an hour or so on the side of the road, we will pick you up and take you to the stop for the night, and then you can work on it in the pits. You're allowed to have a pit crew at your stops at night, so you can have a van with your tools or a trailer or whatever. Every day it'll just be you and the bike. The days vary anywhere from 180 to some of the longest days is about 300 miles. We're trying to keep the days a little bit shorter so that you can bring the earlier bikes and enjoy it just a little bit more, so you're not killing yourself.
Yeah.
But there's certain areas where there's a town big enough to host all those people, and a certain stop that makes it worth you have to jump a little further. But we'll be going through the Carolinas, Tennessee, up and through Kentucky, Missouri, Kansas, then back down into Oklahoma, and then cutting up through Colorado, and then blowing north through the Rockies, and then into Oregon for the finish. So it'll be a really cool route. I already have it kind of roughed in, and the stops are going to be real fun. So we got a few big-time museums signed on so far. Wheels Through Time is going to be a hosted stop at the end of the day. They put on a big spread. Matt over there is a great dude. One of the best antique motorcycle museums on the planet. We got Twisted Odd Motorcycle Museum, Twisted Oz out in Kansas, another great place. We got, what was the other one we have? We got Legends in Provo, Utah.
Yeah.
That's a great place, a huge antique place. Then we got the Evergreen Space Museum, which is really cool. They have the, out in Oregon, we have the Spruce Goose, which is the one that plane that Howard Hughes built in the 30s. And Joe Petrali, which was a famous racer for Harley, was actually the flight engineer on that plane, so for its only flight. So those are some of our announced stops so far. We're working on a bunch more right now, but definitely
it's like taking a tour, like an FXR tour, to a whole nother fucking level.
Yeah, it's with a pack of old oil-breathing, fire-spitting machines that most people frown upon, when they see them coming on the road. So
that's cool, man. I like the idea of the whole thing. Just it's just good. It gives some people purpose to do stuff. Like the way a bike show can give you the kick you need to build to do it. These being a part of these kind of events give you the reason to go down this path or finish that bike or learn that skill to be able to, you know,
Branch on
compete in
something.
it. You know what I mean? So
no, it's cool. It keeps our sport alive. You know, we want to make sure that our generation takes the knowledge from this generation that's passed it down to us. We want to keep it going.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about. You know, we don't want this stuff to get put in a museum or somebody's basement and never get seen or heard of again. We're trying to keep it out there mainstream.
I hear you on that one. So you have a website for this whole thing?
Yeah, it's the motorcycletransam.com. You can go on to the website. You can see like so we have like sponsors on there. We have some of the hosted stops so far, and we're adding to that all the time. We just announced the race.
So like if it's coming through your town, like you can come out and check out all the bikes and stuff like that. Just even being a part of it that way.
Yep.
You know?
And that was like what I was going to tell you. Like if we're going, obviously we're a little north of where you're at, your home base there, but like one of the stops like out in that area, Oklahoma or something, you can swing up and see us at one of the stops and come and say hi and everything. And that's what we're trying to. That's what our big thing is with this event. We're trying to promote all of our stops so that we get more people in at night, because like that's the big thing is the pits. It's all open pits. So all night until wee hours of the morning, you can walk around and watch all these dudes on these crazy old bikes work on them and literally pull motors into thousands of pieces and get them running the next morning.
It's fucking crazy.
It's awesome, man. It's like nothing you've ever seen. So
it'd be cool to like just get out there and get some shots of these bikes going down the road and everything like that, you know?
Yeah, and if you want to, because I know you're big into photography and stuff, I can even tell you like where we're coming through at, and you can even jump on the route during the day with one of your bikes, and you can ride with these guys and like take shots and stuff like that.
Hell
so
yeah, that'd be cool.
It'd be cool, yeah.
And as far as like the other side of the business with all these other things, like where do they find that? On like website, Instagram type thing?
So Competition Distributing is the business. Competitiondist.com is our website. All of our parts and stuff that we have in stock currently are on there. We do like all of our updates. Instagram, competition_distributing. I do updates on there almost daily of like projects we have going on, what I'm building for the business, or, for like right now we're doing this rebar project, all these chassis. But yeah, you can follow us there, and we're always trying to keep people updated with what we're doing. So that's
cool, man. Well, I appreciate it, dude. Like I said, it was cool to actually come to your place this time and do this podcast.
I'm glad you stopped out.
See all this stuff, and it's good because it's like far enough off the highway where I don't want to go back to the highway.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because what happens is like you're like, all right, here's the next stop. And you're like, cool, it's gonna be 3 hours or 1 hour 25 minutes if I take the highway. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, right.
It's like it's already pushing me to just get there, and the whole point is not to be. So I'm actually looking forward to kind of continuing on through some of this, hopefully the rain stopped and it's not fucking like gnarly out there. But
no, it wasn't supposed to rain long. It was just like a spit through, so you'd be
cool.
good.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.